Good evening. This is the evening session of the Board of Assessment Review for the town of Newcastle. It's June 16, 2020, and we could start the meeting. Our first applicant is Michael Wilson.
Let me admit him.
Good evening, Mr. Wilson. It seems you're a little askew.
How's this?
Getting
That
better.
works. Yeah, there you go.
Mr. Wilson, can I ask you to raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. Okay, so you can proceed.
Okay. Pretty simple analysis in the grievance that I filed. I did, there weren't a lot of transactions in our immediate area to do a comparable analysis. So all I did was I just looked at all of the homes I could in the area from public filings to see what the assessed value is. Tried to compare essentially square footage, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, and acreage, and came up with a pretty good comparable list. It's all of these homes are on my block or within 2-block radius. So I think from that standpoint, and the homes are all pretty similar in terms of acreage, very similar in terms of size. I did a linear regression to try and line up the square footage with the assessed value, and you can see from the analysis that we're an outlier relative to the homes in our bucket of square footage, which I kind of narrowed down to between 3,500 and 4,500 square feet. Clearly we're not going to compare to a 6,500 square foot home. And to get back to the average, we're about 10, 11% over assessed, just to get back to the average. And then, in terms of looking at market values, I just, looked at Zillow to see what they were estimating our house to be worth. And it came in to be also about 10 or 11% below what the implied market value would be from our assessed value. So that's 1.1 million versus 1.26 million. So, bottom line is we're just looking for about a 10% reduction, roughly from 262 down to 232 on the assessed value. Relative to our comparables on these two different analyses, one using kind of a square footage analysis and comparable, and then just looking at the market value based on what Zillow had done. So that was it.
Mm-hmm. Josh, do you know what the town says the fair market value of this property is?
I do. The assessed value is $262,750 for a full market value of $1,378,541.
Thank you. I see you purchased a house in '98. Did you do any major improvements?
We did. So that's on page right before I did write this up a little bit. The addition we did was pretty significant in 2007. So it's about 13 years old. We added roughly 1,300 square feet. There's nothing exceptional about the addition relative to the existing property. It's now 13 years old, so it was a significant increase in square footage. But it did not. It's just, once you add that square footage in and compared to the comparables, once again we're still about 10, 11% higher than what the average is. So that's incorporated into this analysis. Once again, I don't think that what we did in the addition makes this an exceptional home relative to the other properties on our block.
Mm-hmm.
If the board likes, I have some photos, if that would be helpful.
Why don't you put them up?
Okay, this photo is from spring of 2001.
Yeah, it's pre-addition. Yep,
Pre-addition, okay.
that's pre-addition.
2005.
Also pre-addition.
That looks like at some
During.
point during.
During
Yes.
addition.
That looks like a rear view.
Do you have a pool, Mr. Wilson?
We do not.
Okay.
We're still on septic. We have fuel oil heating, and you know, so that's a pretty good picture of the backyard. So there's no pool, it's all grass. Same lot, 1 acre. So we pushed out in the back, you can see, added about 1,300 square feet. So it was a significant addition. That's not, you know, that's not being contested. But you know, even with the addition, we're still, you know, we'd say 4,000 square feet, we're 3,880, you know, and just comparing to the other homes where there's been additions on the block as well. You know, this analysis is not perfect. I appreciate that. It's hard to do a perfect analysis, but I felt this was a fair, you know, reflection of the neighborhood. And, you know, we're in that bucket. We're in that, you know, I mean, I don't think that this is similar to other properties. You know, a lot of properties on the block do have pools. They have other amenities that we don't have. You know, we have a decent yard, we have a patio, but once again, I don't think it's, you know, an exceptional property or addition relative to the other homes. It fits in, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask you how much you spent approximately on the addition?
Yeah, it was approximately, you know, with finishing, like painting and everything else, it was probably around $700,000. So, you know, if you include that to our purchase price, you know, that would actually be more than what the current market value is based on Zillow, which, you know, I think we all know the property values here have not been great. So if you want to use that basis, it would be $1,275, $575 plus 700.
Actually, values are going up, surprisingly.
Yeah, I think recently that's right. But in the last, I'm saying the last 10 years, I mean, clearly we haven't recouped.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
No, that's correct.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Are any of the board members have any other questions?
Nope.
No?
Nope. Okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Wilson, we have your application and your attachments, and we will review them, and we will come to a decision, and you'll be notified of that decision on or after September 15th.
Okay. We'll look for that. I get an
All right.
email, or will be an email
No,
notification?
you'll get a letter.
Okay. Terrific.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very
for your
much.
time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
There he is.
Good evening, Mr. Klein.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. Can I ask you to raise your right hand, please?
Sure.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Great. You can proceed.
Terrific. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. As you can see, I filed a grievance regarding my property tax assessment. I included a recently completed appraisal just done last week that is about 4.5% below the town's appraised value for the home. I would just ask that the board take that into account with the grievance. I respect the integrity of the appraisal. There's certain aspects of this appraisal that I don't think can fully adequately encompass the situation of being on a non-conforming lot on a private road in the village here, which I think even makes the home worth a bit less. But I guess I don't feel it can be. I feel the appraisal is fair, given that this home was sitting in a different lot in this town that was flat and didn't have to maintain a private road in terms of plowing and no town services that really I don't know how an appraiser would take into account. And because of that, I believe it's below the appraisal. I understand the board would likely not give me an assessment below an appraised value. but I would just ask that they take into account the recent appraised value when they look at my grievance.
Do you share this road with anyone else?
Share this road, it's 4 homes. It's 2 homes with close egress to Smith Street, then my home further up, and the road terminates with the last home, 25 Spruce Lane North. One of the homes, I've been here 13 years, has refused to participate in any of the costs of plowing the road, even though their driveway is directly across from my driveway, a couple hundred, maybe 150 feet up the road, but they...
You don't have an agreement with these people? There's no written agreements?
The resident who doesn't participate in plowing cost is the longest tenured resident of the road, and has a parking spots, maybe only 25 or 40 feet, maybe it's 50 feet in from Smith, and that's where they leave their cars in the winter, and said I don't use my driveway or my garage in the winter, and I shouldn't have to participate in plowing, and I don't. And, you know, short of, you know, making it an ugly argument, they've never participated in plowing costs for 13 years. We've, obviously, the non-conforming nature of the lot at 0.3 or 0.31 in half-acre zoning. We've lived here 13 years happily, but we've done some work, and sneezing on this property requires 4 or 5 variances at a shot from the town. We had to go in for, I think we added 400 square feet, 200-foot additions, first and second floor 10 years ago, required 4 variances. We added a generator 5 years ago, variance, just long process points because the nature of the lot. We've had a new neighbor at the end of the road who bought a home from a resident who had been there probably 50 or 60 years, wanting to tap into the natural gas line. Con Ed ripped up my front lawn, exercised a right of way across my property, and dug up my lawn 15 feet in and 15 feet wide, 4 feet down. And I had to fight them for months upon months for restoration landscaping work that ultimately wasn't fully restored to me. I had to do it on my own. It's a peculiar street with peculiar issues.
Did you join in having gas to your house?
No, gas predated us. If you, I think Mr. Herrmann has included a map of the road there, and you can see there's
I see it.
There's Spruce North, which I'm on, Spruce South. There's the paper road that was never finished that would almost make it like a horseshoe, which is just wooded. It basically, the road north terminates with 25 North's driveway. And that's where natural gas service terminated when I first came here. Someone bought 41 Spruce Lane South, which is obviously on South, wanted to get gas. None of their neighbors on South were interested in getting gas or the cost of running gas up South, even if you could get Con Ed to do the project. Realized that North was on gas and filed to come down their property into the paper road, basically latching into the last main. You know, we were not forewarned of this. One day I woke up and saw a backhoe coming down the hill through the woods of my previous neighbors coming at my property. When I asked what's going on, they said, oh, we're tapping into the gas. And they showed me a map of how they were tapping into the gas at the main for 25 Spruce Lane North. And it wouldn't affect my property at all. I said, okay. A week later, I got a call from my wife at work. Con Ed had come through and dug up our front lawn, determined that our main was a better contact point. And they have a 15-foot right-of-way whenever they want it into any private property where they run gas. So they ran gas, they went 15 feet in, 15 feet wide, 4 feet down, then into the paper road for the gas connection. It was an endless process to get their restoration landscapers here to work on it. The paper road part, years before, I had actually seeded, it was all dirt, but it was creating runoff down the hill. To the neighbor who doesn't participate in the plowing was complaining about runoff, so I seeded it and landscaped it. And Con Ed ripped through all that and refused to do any restoration there because they said, well, that's a right of way. We'll take care of what we ripped up on your private property after months of fighting them, but ultimately never restored anything they ripped apart in the right of way between the properties.
How long ago? How long ago was this?
2 years ago, it was just
Okay.
prior to that spring nor'easter in March a couple of years ago, where we all lost power for a week.
Yeah.
I forget what was that, spring of 18.
Mm-hmm.
And the neighbor who was the, who put the work order into Con Ed, felt they weren't in the wrong, and the fact that I had seeded and put grass and some shrubbery in a right of way that no one had used in 100 years just to control runoff on the hill was my problem. And Con Ed said it was my problem. I'm not saying it was a fortune, but it was money, and they're just all peculiar issues of this private road. This private road we had to pave 6 years ago. Once again, you can imagine the folks at the bottom of the hill fought us tooth and nail on restoring a road that hadn't been touched in 40 or 50 years that was dilapidated. So it's a complicated relationship. I didn't know until the day I closed on the house, when I was, I guess you could say younger and stupider.
You didn't know when you were buying a house on a private road?
I found out at closing from my attorney, do you realize your spur is private? Town services end at Smith and Spruce Lane North.
So what about garbage pickup?
Well, there's a sewer on the road, and that's why I had never dreamed it would be a private road. There was a
What
sewer.
about garbage? Garbage.
The garbage men will come into, they come to like a midpoint and will pick up, and the mailman comes to a midpoint. The end of the road's mailbox is by me, but the plows do not come up the street.
Well, I understand the plows, but
yeah,
can you put your garbage cans outside your house and they'll be picked up?
I can put garbage in the end of the driveway.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's just a courtesy or whatever, but to be completely square, yes, I do, and they come and get it. I know Spruce Lane South, all of their mailboxes, etc., are at the end at Smith Street. I don't know if their garbage is that as well. Their road isn't as wide as ours, since we plowed it to give access, to something as easy as a garbage truck to come up and then reverse. But of course, no plowing at all.
And what about mail delivery? Do you have a mailbox outside your house?
Mailbox is just south of my driveway. It's actually on the property of 4 Spruce Lane. Somehow it predated there. That homeowner is fine with it. The people at the end 25's mailbox is there too. They walk down to, it's halfway up the road.
Mm-hmm.
But very close to the driveway.
Okay, so we got your application and a copy of your appraisal. We will certainly review it and make a determination, and you will find out our decision on or after September 15th.
Okay.
May I just add one thing before we conclude?
Yes.
Sure.
So Mr. Klein and I had a couple different conversations, and so if you had mentioned it, I don't remember. I didn't realize it was on a private road, and the appraiser didn't note that. I would recommend contacting them and seeing if he feels that would change the valuation of that. That would be something that would be appropriate that he would note in the report.
Okay, understood. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Mr. Herrmann.
No. I think that would be pertinent information. I know he wasn't able to come out due to the situation that's going on, but if you don't mind, I would reach out to him and see if it alters it.
Josh, well, it says private road. No, it says here, subject is located on a private road.
Did I miss that?
Yep, on the first page. Site comments. The road was recently repaved. It does not affect value, or marketability.
Okay, my mistake. I apologize.
104, yep. Yep, we got it. Okay. So we're okay.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, I remember telling him, I missed that in the report. I'm glad you caught it.
Yeah, I think being on a private road could be a double-edged sword, I guess.
Well, you know,
Oh.
listen, everyone tries to get along. You know, when if
Yeah.
someone's coming up a little bit light on something, you don't want to burn the house down on being able to coexist with people.
Sure.
You know how it goes. So it's difficult, and you know, but it becomes frustrating when, you know, obviously you're looking at someone who's equally up the road as you, but has decided because of a nifty way to get egress to Smith Street, they shouldn't participate in plowing for 13 or 14 years.
Well, you're telling me that there's nothing in writing, correct?
There was no agreement in writing. Like, contrary to the next street over, Morton Glenside behind the library, I'm told there was sort of contract. There's something in writing that everyone comes in. Everyone knows if you buy 34 Glenside, you're obligated to pay 16.5% of the plowing. If you
Right.
buy, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You know, nothing was in place with regards to that. You know,
What about road repairs and paving when needed?
when we were paved in 2014, and I don't know, it was dilapidated. So I mean,
Did the
one
town did
resident.
it or you guys paid for it?
Sorry?
Did the town do it or you did it?
No. We paid for it. Essentially, we broke it up as the 2 homes on the upper half split the upper half equally, and all 4 homes split the lower half equally. So it was kind of like half of it was split a quarter each way, and half of it was split half and half. You know, whatever that broke down to. But we had to pay for a repaving.
Just out of curiosity, did
Yeah.
you ever think about trying to get the town, you know, donate the street to the town?
State law prohibits if you have less than 50 feet of right of way from the town accepting it. My assumption is that road is something less than 50 feet wide.
Yeah, it's a 40-foot wide right of way.
Now, that's usually the case. Any private road, 40 feet, the town can't accept it.
Okay.
And obviously, I don't have to tell you guys, it was a pretty big number going through a paving on this kind of thing, you know, even amongst the 4 of us. So, but it needed it. It was there. It was at the end of its life.
Mhm. Okay, you're fully submitted, so you'll hear from us.
All right, gentlemen, I appreciate it. Everyone stay well. Have a good summer.
Thank you.
Thank you. You
Good
too.
night.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.
He's joining now. And here he is.
Good evening, Mr. McManus.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. May I ask you to raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Okay, you can proceed.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys received my materials for the property located at 9 Alapars Road. The property is owned by a not-for-profit corporation with 501c3 status and is currently being operated for exempt purposes, and therefore deserves to be exempt from tax, and is the grounds for the complaint is unlawful taxation for that same reason, and I have provided the appropriate renewal application.
Okay, so Josh, what's your position? This is a legal issue, so what's your position?
The deadline for filing is June 1st.
Okay.
It was mailed on June 6th and received in my office by June 9th.
All right, so it's late.
It was untimely, correct?
It was untimely. Okay.
And what is the purpose of this 501c3?
So this particular 501c3 has a joint mission, but it functionally what it does is it raises essentially Christian values in young people. So they have retreats. The property currently is in disrepair, so the amount of retreats that they are able to have has of course diminished over the years. And if you'll actually look at my materials, we actually
I'm on a Zoom meeting.
we actually revised so the materials that were actually provided to you were actually done by a former board member who isn't currently associated with us. So we actually updated the materials with the complaint that I provided. The organization is looking to actually dissolve only because it is becoming so difficult for it to maintain the property.
Do we have any discretion, Josh?
By discretion, what do you mean?
I mean, the application was untimely. How is that a hard and fast rule or what? You know, I mean, if it's untimely, it's untimely, and it takes the decision out of our hands.
Well, I would say,
Here.
although my position based on reviewing the statute is, although you guys are allowed to make any rules that you may like, there is no requirement of the statute that any application be timely. So under the statute, my client is exempt because he's an exempt purpose. He is an exempt entity with an exempt purpose. And so and then I would also say to the timeliness, one of the big issues was that the current board was not actually did not actually receive the notice, and the notice went to not my office nor the office of any of the board members. So when we sort of realized this was the deadline, we sort of promptly took all these steps.
Hmm.
How often do you hold these retreats?
So we've been holding them about annually, is what we've been able to do. And of course, this year is been a little bit more difficult because of COVID.
Josh?
Yes, I'm pulling it up, and
Okay. You have the law there?
well, the law is clear that you have to refile every year, and I can
And
tell
did-
you that I've received maybe 24 between emails and phone calls from different realtors, and the property's listed for sale.
Okay.
I've spoken to several potential buyers. We took the position this year when it was grossly overassessed, and it was one of those things that we never realized until the application lapsed. So I reduced the assessed value from, I think it was over $1.5 million down to $500,000 when I moved it to taxable. You know, to answer your question, Howard, I am bound by the law. You guys have a little bit more discretion on that because, I mean, you're a quasi-judicial board. I think if there's a compelling argument, I think that the property has been exempted pretty much forever. It's since, well, my record shows 1981.
Okay.
So, you know, if I had the discretion, I certainly would have done that.
And to sort of just provide more information, obviously we're trying to sell the property, so there is actually a chance that the property will actually get changed hands prior to when the actual change in the tax rolls would actually incur a tax liability upon the owner of the property. However, our issue is that because this property is the last main resource of this not-for-profit organization, the AG process may take a little bit more time. And so we're just coming before this and filing this complaint because we don't want April to come around and, you know, the transaction closes in June and we end up having to pay 2 months taxes, which we really can't afford because the corporation is dissolving.
I understand. But since 1981, this property has been exempt. So for every year, you've been seeking the exemption, and probably timely.
Correct.
What happened this year?
So I would say that what happened this year is the board had a dramatic change in hands. And so that is sort of what happened is an almost entirely new board took control of the property and the old board left. And so as a result, the appropriate sort of procedures were not left in the hands of the new board. And in fact, the application that you actually received for the exemption was provided by an old board member, which was fraudulent on his part. But so it was just the change in hands. And in fact, when we've actually, last year, we went before this board to ask for a reevaluation of the property's assessment. We had asked for the property to sort of like the notice addresses for the property to be updated. And for some reason, no one was actually notified that this was the deadline as far as this new change in the DAR.
Hmm. Okay. All right, so let's see if what type of discretion we have
Sure.
in waiving the date of June 1st. I don't know if we do, but we will look into it for sure. And you will have our decision on or after September 15th.
Okay.
All
If-
right.
If I could just make
Property
one
actually
comment.
Yes,
On the market.
it's on the market, yeah.
It's on the market, but more importantly, the complaint form was blank except for the signature page.
All right.
I would tell you that that would need to be amended to what it is that you're looking for, whether it's an evaluation issue or the exempt issue. But as I understand it, the board can't act on a blank form.
So Paul, that was not what I had provided. I will look into that, what was actually transferred. But my grounds for the complaint was unlawful taxation. So I really do apologize that whatever was sent to you was not correct.
I wouldn't say it was incorrect. I'd say it was blank. I can show you what it is.
I would be happy to see it because I have the final version on my computer and could provide it to you right now.
That would probably be a good idea. Let me because you're unable to amend petition after 8 p.m.
Yeah,
I would suggest you send it immediately to Mr. Herrmann.
Yeah.
Huh? All right.
All right, I will send that to you. Is this by email? Is that okay?
That's fine. I'm trying to find the folder that I circulated. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so this was in the packet.
Yeah, that's blank. I will send you the correct one.
Yeah, Mr. McNabb, please do it prior to 8 p.m.
Oh, you'll
An hour and
we'll have it
15
very
minutes.
quickly.
Do you have my email address?
I do.
Okay,
Perfect.
very well. I'll put this in the file for the board's consideration, and then they'll make the decision. The notice will be mailed out September 15th.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Why not?
I think he's a doctor. Dr. Rikers?
Mr. Rikers, good evening.
I think his audio's still connecting.
Oh. Good evening. Can you see us and hear us?
I can.
Good, thank you. Can you raise your right hand, please, sir? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. Okay, so you can proceed.
Well, I have applied for a grievance and submitted an analysis from a realtor and a certified appraiser analysis of the house. And what I see in the 6 or 7 houses here that the appraiser says are comparable and that the realtor says are comparable are sold within the last year at a price substantially below what my house is appraised at. My house is appraised at $1.2 million, and the houses I'm looking at sold for $800,000, $692,000, $850,000, $999,000, et cetera, et cetera. And My house is on a very long driveway, so I don't have access to garbage pickup. It's not on a town road, so I have to plow it. So there are several things that make my house less desirable than a house built in, for example, I think there was 2010. A couple houses that are a lot newer. So I'm interested in a grievance because I don't think I'm being appraised fairly.
Okay. So I see the appraisal shows a value of 875.
Yes.
Josh, what does the town believe the fair market value to be?
The assessment is a 233,500 for a full market value of 1,225,078.
Great, thank you. You purchased a house in 96 for 635?
No, 1975.
Says date of purchase, 1996.
Oh, yeah, you're correct. It was built in 1971. You're right. I'm sorry. You're right.
Did you do any improvements thereafter?
Yeah, I had to replace a roof. We had a lightning strike. I had to replace a chimney. We had a flood. They had to put a curtain drain around it. And that's...
You have a pool?
I do have a pool.
Did you buy it with a pool?
It came with a pool and it needed repair because it was leaking. It's an annual pain in the neck. I wish I didn't have it.
Mm-hmm. Have you done anything to your kitchens or baths?
The kitchen was redone a few years ago, just appliances.
No cabinetry?
Some cabinetry, not all, not a complete thing.
This is a picture of the house?
That's it.
How many square feet is it?
I think 3,300.
The town record has 3768.
I don't know what they're counting, but the livable space is we have three bedrooms.
So you have 3768 square feet. Do you have a basement?
It's underneath the main house is a garage and a partially finished basement and cold storage.
And an attic.
Yes, an empty bare attic. So they count that space in the attic or not?
Yes, they're putting it down as a finished attic, 738 square feet.
So how does that compare to these other houses? There's some of them are larger.
Is that 738, Josh, in the 3768?
Yes, it is. The finished basement is not in, is
No,
not
I
included,
understand.
but the finished attic is.
Okay.
What's the nature of the outbuilding or outbuildings? if there are?
We don't have any.
No, no. Oh, I thought there was one. Okay.
This is Chapco Schools, Josh?
Bedford
Bedford.
Schools.
Bedford Schools. Yeah, that's the property. Board members, do you have any other questions?
No,
Nope.
Okay, so you're fully submitted and we will make a determination over the summer and you'll be notified on or after September 15th.
Okay. So what happens if I don't like your appraisal? What, do I have any options at that time?
You do, well, you can either accept our decision or you can go to court.
Would that be for this calendar year or does that go into the next year?
No, you have, I think 30 days after our decision is rendered. Josh, is that correct? To file a SCAR, small claims,
What's it called?
a
Correct.
SCAR.
So if you disagree with the determination of the board,
Yes.
you have 30 days to file what's called a small claim assessment review
Small
with
claims.
Westchester
That's
County.
small claims are, okay.
If that needs to happen, then you can certainly reach out to us. Once you get your determination, we can try to walk you through the steps. And then what that does is it puts it within the Westchester County Supreme Court, and we would await a hearing date, and then you go in front of the judge, and he makes the final determination.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
You know,
Should be on in a second. There he is.
Good evening, Mr. Goldstein. Oh, he's not there yet.
Still connecting to audio.
Okay.
There. I know that guy. Okay, should be on.
Good evening, Mr. Goldstein.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. May I ask you to raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I certainly do.
Great, thank you very much, sir. Can you, you can proceed now with your application.
Okay. The reason that I asked that this be done in person, I guess, for lack of a better word now, is that I wanted everybody to understand that my property is, according to you and Newcastle, about 0.92, you and Mount Pleasant, excuse me, is about 0.92 acres. The property line between Mount Pleasant and Newcastle runs directly through the middle of my house. So on your side, you have about 0.4 acres. On Mount Pleasant's side, it has about 0.52 acres. If I take your 0.4 acres and I use that valuation to value my entire lot and my whole house, that comes out to about $964,000 value, just using your appraisal. This house would never sell for anything like $964,000. I mean, it's got a nice piece of property on it, but the house is very small. It may be like 2,500, I don't remember from when I bought it, but I think it was like 25 or 2,400 square feet. Built in 1929. I bought it in 1997. I've actually lived here since 1986 on the same street. We've done no work on this house since we bought it. The kitchen was probably built sometime in 1950s. The basement gets flooded when it rains. We need a ton of work to get this house in shape if we're ever going to try and sell it. But I know from people in my neighborhood and reading the flyers that we get from the real estate agents that this house would go maybe, with its size for much, much less than $964,000. It just isn't, a place where people could fit a family anymore. I mean, we don't even have room for all of our stuff in the house. It's so small. The rooms are tiny. It's got, it's got a nice piece of property, but the house is very, very small. And I just believe that the valuation of $964,000 is just way out of line with what this house really could sell for in the marketplace. That's really, I just wanted to make sure you guys understand that, that we're actually double what you're assessing it at, before, we get an assessment finished for this year again. As I say, we've done nothing to the house since its purchase. It needs hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of work. Maybe one day we'll get to it. I don't know. Certainly if we ever wanted to sell it. In fact, I think that if we were to sell it, a buyer might be more interested in knocking the house down and just buying the land, which I don't know how much land goes forward into it. But I can't imagine it for $963,000.
Can you, Is it possible for you to send pictures to Josh of the kitchen and the bath and the basement and the bedrooms? If you would do that, that would be helpful to us.
I will certainly do that. I have to tell you though, and because it's almost embarrassing, there's no room in our house. We had 3 kids. They're gone. They left all this stuff here, but there's just no room. The basement is just full of stuff. The rooms are just full of stuff because there's no place to put anything. So it's pretty embarrassing. So I'll take some photos and I'll send them to Josh and
Yes, please.
go from there. That's fine.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Anyone have a question for Mr. Goldstein? No?
I'll ask a quick question.
Sure.
Have you had an appraisal, Mr. Goldstein, at all?
No. No.
How did you arrive at the 700,000 combined value?
Just by looking at what my neighbors put houses on for sale, and when they sold them, a couple of neighbors have sold houses for $1 million, but they are much bigger than mine. And just looking at the flyers that I get from the real estate brokers in town, showing how much, what houses go for $699, $729, $1 million and more than that. And I just compared it to them as best as I could. Just pretty much it.
Okay, thanks. You have my email. If you just send me those pictures, I will make sure that the board gets to see them so that when they make the determination, they have all the facts.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it, guys, and I know this is rough work for you, and especially in this day and age. So thanks a lot. I'll
Thank
send
you,
it
Mr.
off to
Goldstein.
you,
Thanks for coming in.
and
Thank you.
have a good day, and thanks again.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
sir.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, he's gone.
I don't. Good evening. This is the conclusion of the evening session of the Board of Assessment Review for the town of Newcastle. There are no other applicants to be heard at this point. It is very close to 8 o'clock, and I believe we can sign off for the evening and conclude the day's grievance hearings.